taifa letu Kenya, Kenya, Kenya nchi yetu, Kenya, Kenya, Kenya taifa letu.
From the rolling savannas to the towering peaks of Mount Kenya, from the lush wetlands of Naivasha to the vibrant streets of Nairobi, this is Kenya, a land of resilience, culture, and boundless potential. 61 years ago, we claimed our independence, forging a path of unity and hope. Today, we honor that journey by recommitting to what makes us proud, our people, our environment, and our shared purpose. This Independence Day, let's reflect on our heritage, celebrate our progress, and dream of a future where all thrive together. Karibu Kenya. Welcome home. Hello, y'all. Welcome back to the Open Exchange, formerly known as City, where we're going to explore the issues that matter the most with honesty, empathy, and a commitment to a deeper understanding. I'm your host. You always see me on here, Tex Wambui, and today we're diving into some of the most pressing topics of our time. It's a lot of things going on around the whole world. I can't even believe there was a country that was on martial law recently. Like that is even fascinating just to think about. But today we'll be discussing climate action, gender-based violence, including femicides, societal roles, and what we can do to foster peaceful coexistence between genders, I think. That's what my guest here wants to talk about today as well. These are big topics, and honestly, they're not easy conversations, but they're absolutely necessary. So joining me today is someone whose work embodies passion and purpose, Hussein Waiyaki. He is a photographer, activist, and an advocate for sustainable communities. Hussein, welcome back to the show. It's not the first time you've been on here, man, so welcome back, brother.
Thank you so much, Tex, and thank you again for hosting me back here. I've been here, I mean, it's been quite a minute. So, for the purpose of my introduction, for those who we've not met, my name is Hussein Waiyaki. Currently living in Nairobi, Kenya, just like you said, activist, human rights activist, social rights advocate, and environmental activist, and photographer as well. So yeah, well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to have this discussion.
Me too, man. And just to let y'all know, to all the listeners and viewers out there today, me and him got some things boiling in the kitchen right now. Dropping 2025, we're gonna be making an impact. You know, the youth is about to be out. We about to lead. Baby boomers are dying out, so it's our turn to now. At some point, we're gonna be baby boomers, but now it's our time to shine. But anyways, so let's kind of start with our first segment. We're going to discuss about environment and climate action. You're a big time environmental activist, and it's something that I've also been increasing participation in and also enlightening myself more on. So let's start with the environment. You've been deeply involved in conservation initiatives like Adopt Wetland Campaign, and these projects aren't just about saving ecosystems, they're about sustaining livelihoods. For instance, there's wetlands like Lake Naivasha have historically acted as a natural water treatment systems, saving industries and municipalities millions in costs. Yet, they're under constant threat from siltation and habitat loss. So, the concept of nature-based solutions really intrigues me, and restoring wetlands, planting trees, and empowering communities have both ecological and economic benefits. For example, restored wetlands improve water quality, they support biodiversity, and they definitely reduce water treatment expenses. So, Dodi, or Hussein, what's been
Yeah.
your experience with scaling these solutions, and what barriers do you think we need to overcome to make these efforts more impactful?
Well, let me first begin by saying that in as much as we are trying as a country, as the globe, Kenya remains very vulnerable to frequent climate shock that poses very significant risk in terms of biodiversity, economic, and even social interaction. While globally, per se, there's have been this issue of climate change and whatnot, and Kenya is not an exception. tried our best. I've been working with an organization that we do, community sensitization. We try and sensitize the community, which we do tree planting. Sometimes we do the wetlands campaigns and whatnot. And yes, it's been a journey in as much as human activities sometimes overshadow, the call of nature. It's been a journey and a challenging one, but we are in it. We're in it.
Those are excellent points. And one barrier I've read about is the lack of accessible funding for nature-based solutions, and private investors often prioritize short-term returns. How do you think we can better align public and private interest in conservation?
I think it should start with me and you at a very personal level, because if we don't become advocates of nature and the environment, good environment at personal level, then it becomes very difficult even to align and coexist and bring that partnership between public and private partnership in terms of nature conservation and the climate action. It's number one. I think it's a question of goodwill. We all need to have that goodwill. We all need to realize that our climate is ours, and if we really disturb and destroy the climate, then where else do we go? So it's in as much as some of us do it as a passion, it's a call from personal person. It's a call from an individual point of view that everybody has to see nature as a very important and integral aspect of humanity, as a very significant part of us coexisting. And from that perspective, I think it becomes very easy even for us to make that little input that we can, you as Tex Wamboi, me as Hussein Waiyaki, and any other person or any other huge organization that may be in support of the whole cause. I think the most important thing is the question of goodwill. Like in Kenya, you'll realize people are cutting down tree, anyhow. They don't even care the impact of doing that. And apparently that has been one of the reasons that caused a major drought in Kenya around 2023, when it flipped, like almost the whole of 2023, we experienced a very major drought in Kenya, and it's apparently because of human actions. And the fact that I don't know if it's the I don't care mindset, or people think that they can leave Earth and go in planet Mars or Jupiter. I'm not very sure why, but I think the most important thing is goodwill. So everybody should act on goodwill to make sure that nature is properly conserved, and with that we'll attain the stable climate and environmental existence that we all need to live in.
We often hear about big corporations pledging to go green, but isn't it ironic that some of the worst environmental offenders are also the loudest in marketing their sustainability efforts? So, question I'd ask for you, do you think, are we just letting things like greenwashing win the day while communities like ours pay the real price? Because it's clear that countries that are not polluting the most are paying the burden of this cost at a higher price. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Apparently, that's very unfortunate because it's the very fact, the capital T truth. Communities that are not polluting the most are paying the heavy burden. I mean, I don't know, because we're living in terms of climate and environment. We're actually one huge global community. In terms of technology and technological advancement, now we are very one small global community. So I don't know how the world in its own self will integrate its interrelation to see how we curb this issue of climate and delve into climate actions. But it's quite unfortunate and apparently very hypocritical, if I have to say so. But countries that are really trying the most are the ones that pay the huge debt in terms of climate actions and whatnot. So yeah, it's very unfortunate, apparently.
It's very fascinating just to think about it, and I really like the point where you pointed out about starts from the individual will to actually kind of take it up for your own self and do that thing. And It's funny enough because recently I was watching something that was like some interview I watched or something, and Jeff Bezos was there because Jeff Bezos is one of the top world leaders apparently, and he's an entrepreneur, and he's really focused on doing things related to the aspect of preserving the earth. Versus you have Elon Musk, who is kind of geared on like, let's go to Mars, let's go to Pluto, let's go do all those things. But I would honestly say that if I was to choose in which whose kind of ideology I agree with, which you asserted to in terms of the individual will, I think Jeff Bezos once said we need to save what we have now and create new solutions for the future. And that really resonates deeply when we look at projects like restoring Nairobi's wetlands. These are immediate solutions with long-term benefits of our environment and economy. So Hussein, how do you think such initiatives align with the vision of sustainability? Things like ensuring that such wetlands are addressed from a government aspect to the individual point of view, and then also touch upon some of the campaigns that you've been able to do in terms of the Wetlands Day that you did, I think, last year.
Yes. So I'd start by saying this: we cannot try and attempt to solve anticipated problem, whereas we already have problems at hand to solve. So indeed, I resonate 100% that we have to save what we have now before we anticipate for what will get us in the near future. We don't even know if we'll be here or not. So it's very important to save what we have now. And what we have now is what we rely on to survive as human beings. So yeah, and from my end, I've been running campaigns on environment back to back and more so on wetlands because around Nairobi, currently Nairobi is very watered. Nairobi and its environment, Nairobi just next to Nairobi County is Kiambu County, which is very watered. But human activities and apparently corporates, these irresponsible corporate actions are really messing up our environment. So we had that one for Manguo Swamp. Someone was telling me when I was doing that analysis research that Manguo had never dried for quite a number of years, but last year it went. There's a report about initially Manguo being the home of 51 species of birds. When I was doing the campaign, I went to the Kenya Wildlife Services, the KWF, and I asked them, so how many species of birds do you think the swamp right now inhabit? And they were like, maybe four. You're not very sure. So you can see the drastic change from 51 to 4, which apparently they were not very sure because I visited the place and I could only capture one species of bird with apparently a countable number. You see, that means there's a problem. That by itself means there's a problem because it poses the question, where did all the other bird species went? Since we cannot take care of our environment, we are making some other very integral, important aspects of the environment distinct from us because from 51 species to 4 species, I don't know to other people, but to me, that's a real problem. So I'll be running campaigns on wetland restoration. I feel like wetlands are very important aspect of biodiversity. Play a very important and vital aspect in us, in our life, in the life of other living organisms aside human beings. So yeah, there was that for Manguo. There's another one I'm also running, the source of River Nairobi, which apparently is somewhere in Karura. Some private investors tried to privatize the place, and we really tried to make some noise. And right now, it seems like things are, cooling down, but we don't know. Corporate actions are really messing up, and we never say that perhaps because it looks socially repulsive or we fear, you know, I don't know what not, but somehow and for some reasons we have to talk. So I've been doing that for Mango. It's a wetland swamp. I've been doing for Ondire, but Ondire apparently is doing very well. It's in Kikuyu. And that one for the source of Nairobi River, which is apparently somewhere past Karura Forest. And I think you've also seen recently there has been some issues with the Karura Forest. Some part of investors want to cut down some trees and whatnot. And people are saying, no, we really need to maintain the Wangari Maathai legacy, and we can't afford to lose the forest because Right now, it has become a part of a tourist attraction site just because of its well-maintained stature. The- Start cutting down trees, not going to work well with us. So there has been a lot been going on. We've also been trying our level best in as much as you just earlier said, the aspect of resources and secure funding for doing these activities is quite a challenge. But we are really trying for from our capacities, from little capacity that we are in. We are really trying to make sure nature is well conserved, prevented, and protected by all material means.
I really agree with that. And you brought up a really good point before we shift into our next topic that I really like to emphasize on. The Wangari Maathai um, I, legacy. I think that is something. I think she's a Nobel Prize winner.
Exactly. Nobel
Nobel
Prize
Peace
winner.
Prize winner.
Yes.
And I think that is something that definitely needs to be upheld for the region of Kenya because one, yes, it is a tourist attraction. Then also it does bring the question though that Kenya is pushing for such development and infrastructure development, and some of these things that are for infrastructure development is not only going to make the environment worse, it's gonna make it seem like we don't care about our Earth. It's not like I don't think the best future is having an AC condition type of world. It's actually having a natural base type of Earth, to where we actually are relying on trees and the actual nature aspect of things instead of actually constantly relying on such a tech savvy or having a air conditioned type of lifestyle, which I don't think serves any benefit to the environment, and also not just to us. It doesn't serve any benefit to the species around there, like you mentioned, the birds. So I definitely think it's something that needs to be addressed at and pushed for. And I think you and I, we got some things boiling in the kitchen, like I said, to ensure that we make sure that these things are at the forefront of not just the local community, but from a global landscape of understanding what are the limitations and what is the way to approach development in such an area that is solely based on ensuring that the environment one is good, because that's what attracts and also provides economic stability and development for that country, as well as preserving human nature. So I'm excited and looking forward to some of the more things that you will be doing as well. Hopefully, when you run for your campaign again, maybe that will be part of your pillars. So
It
now
has
let's
always been pillars.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Now let's shift to a different topic now, right? You had mentioned you want to talk about this. This is kind of where it's a little sensitive here, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna talk about this. Let's pivot to a topic that's deeply troubling but essential to address. Currently in Kenya now, there's gender-based violence. And just this week, there has been protests erupted across Kenya calling for action against femicides. Instead of support, protesters were met with like tear gases and arrests, and it's uprising to escalate into something worse. And when you look at it, the statistics are heartbreaking. Between August and October 2023, 97 women were killed in femicides, and 40% of Kenyan women report experiencing physical or sexual violence in their lifetimes. Hussein, why do you think society struggles to confront issues like gender based violence, even when the evidence is overwhelming, especially in a region like Kenya?
Well, allow me first, before even responding to your question, by actually saying shame on those police who tear gassed protesters for no apparent reason. Shame on them, and perhaps shame on that person who sent them to tear gas protesters. Now, having said that, let's drill on that issue of femicide and the whole thing of GBV. It's quite unfortunate to begin with that people are killing each other. And recently, I was in a meeting and I said this: a society that needs a youth to fight for the right of youth is indeed a rotten society. A society that needs a woman to fight for the right of women is indeed, there is no society at all. We don't need. I want to be in a position where me, as a young Hussein Waiyaki, when I see an old woman somewhere talking, I'm so secure that my interests are also taken care of. And it's so sad that right now we are talking of 16 days of violence and 16 days of activism, and this end femicide thing because apparently it looks like it has been a norm of people killing each other in Kenya. But there's something that we are not talking about. Because apparently we've been shouting about femicide and women being massacred and killed and murdered in cold blood and whatnot. But it's not just women who are being killed. So I deeply resonate and support the cause, and I rebuke any and every spirit that tells someone to kill another person because that's entirely wrong. If you have to approach it from the doctrine of morality, it's wrong. If you have to approach it from the doctrine of religious perspective, it's still wrong. If you have to approach it from the doctrine of legality, it's still wrong. So at no material point it becomes right. It's wrong and entirely wrong. But here's the answer. I feel like we have a whole rotten tree, but instead of addressing the root cause of the problem, we are cutting the stem. And apparently it's not going to work because you cut the stem, it sprouts in different ways. You cut the stem, it sprouts in different ways. And that's not going to solve. So I feel like we really need to sit down, address the whole cause as to why are people killing each other, because it's not only women who are being killed. Right now we are talking of femicide in Kenya because it's rampant and given the media airtime, but it's not only women. Last week I was in a meeting and an old man told me there have been recorded 16 killings of old men by their wives in a small village in Kiambu. Those cases are not reported anywhere. They just die natural death and that's gone. From an approach perspective, I feel like we really need to recall ourselves, sit down with our minds and ask ourselves, where is the problem? Where did the rain started beating us? From that, I feel we'll have started bringing solution to the whole aspect of gender-based violence.
Femicides are not isolated incidents. They are the result of systemic issues rooted in, patriarchal structures. Change is definitely possible. I'd say, recently President Ruto allocated, I think, 700,000 for a campaign to end femicide. Do you think like this is a step in the right direction, or what's your thoughts on that?
So he allocated 700,000 for in support of femicide. Then yesterday he sends his police to tear gas, protesters, you know, asking their rights, fighting against femicide. So where is I feel like this guy has to come forth and tell us where is he? Where does he lie? Because
You know,
we haven't even
that's a
we
good point
haven't even
because
seen money yet. We haven't even seen the money yet. But again, police are coming out tear gassing people. I really hope you saw news yesterday. Those people were actually at Chivanji Gardens. Nobody was carrying a stone. Nobody was carrying anything threatening to the security of the place. But apparently, policemen decided to care, to invade the place from wherever they came from and decided to tear gas peaceful protesters. So I feel like Ruto, and actually I'm calling him straight on. I feel like Ruto needs to come forth and tell us, where is he? Is he for the fight or is he playing some gimmick PR? Because it's not what one says, but what one does that defines who they are.
that's a good point. It's something that I was also kind of curious about. What if that 700,000 is actually part of sending the police there? What if that budget is allocated to having the police there to end the femicide by attacking them? And that's a very good point you bring up on there in terms of it seems like there's a system in place that lacks transparency. Accountability for the actions they do. But I would say here's a thought. Here's a thought. If femicide statistics were as alarming for any other demographic, like let's say men, wouldn't we already have seen massive reforms by now? Doesn't it make you wonder, does society genuinely values women's lives the same way, or are we just paying lip service here? What do you think of that?
Okay, from my perspective, it's a more deeper problem because I was trying to analyze three extreme cases on femicide. And one of the cases that I was trying to analyze, and apparently I think it's just was just concluded in court the other day, I think last month, is this guy who drove all the way from Thika to Kakamega to murder a woman. Then I asked myself, from a humanly perspective, all that way, this guy is driving his own car. Doesn't he at any material point contemplate a different thought? So there must be something behind that person's mind that, you know, is intriguing this person that, it's close to more than 300 and something kilometers drive, and you're just driving yourself just to go murder someone, something more bigger than that act of murder. And if we address femicide from that aspect of, just people killing each other, then we are missing the point, because there must be cause behind that killing. So why don't we address this cause behind the killing? Because if we address the cause behind the killing, we are definitely addressing the act itself. If we address the motive behind the action, we address the intention behind the action, then we're definitely addressing the action itself. But we can't put much focus on addressing the action, because right now everybody's shouting stop killing women. Everybody, you watch those clips on the street, and apparently I'm in support of it, because we should stop killing women in as much as we should as well stop killing men. So why are women killed? I think is the question that needs to be addressed. Instead of women asking the society, why are you killing us? They should ask, why are women killed? You get the reason as to why women are killed, then now let's address that. Apparently, when we address that, we have addressed the whole issue of femicide. On the other hand, we should ask again, why are men killed? If we get the reason as to why are men killed, and address that reason, apparently we'll address the whole issue of, this killing or whatnot. But the biggest problem, I feel like, and I'm sorry to say this, but it's very hypocritical, because in the society that we are living in, it's become a very norm for our persons to just support one side of the cause that favors them and turn a blind eye on the other side of the cause that does not favor them, and apparently think they'll achieve results. It does not work like that. We'll be here making noise, stop femicides, stop killing women, stop doing this and that, but apparently we won't be achieving anything. So we really need to address the problem from a very sober perspective. We need to bury our emotions and address the cause of the problem from a very sober perspective. From that, I have genuine feeling we'll have addressed the whole aspect of GBV.
This is perfect because it ties into kind of our next conversation. This ties into a larger conversation about societal roles. Traditionally, men have been viewed as providers and protectors, while women have been seen as caregivers. And I've actually had a few guests on here who've stand by this. I think you've seen those. But those lines are kind of blurring, for a good reason. My question is, in redefining these roles, how do we ensure progress doesn't feel like a loss of identity or value for anyone?
Thank you. Now that you're asking the very question that people need to ask.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you that you're actually asking the very important question that people now needs to begin asking themselves. And the very question is, as we embrace the change in dynamic, the societal change in dynamic, how best do we ensure we don't lose? Because here's the thing, and with utmost respect and very cautious saying this, it's funny how as we embrace modernity, I normally say the modern feminine energy is struggling to be masculine, and the modern masculine energy is struggling to be feminine. And amid that, we are creating you know, a new order of world chaos without realizing. Because I am into this transformative change in societal perspective, but I hold it dear that there are roles that cannot be negated, and we start negating the roles, then we create a whole chaotic system that apparently I feel like we won't be able. It's getting out of. It's already getting out. It's already out of hand as we are speaking, and it's getting much more out of hand. And apparently, I feel like there's a lot of killing for the very same reason that we are craving for identities that we don't own. As we have embraced this new societal paradigms and change, could we find a way to just realize and maintain our identities as men, as women, instead of being, see, every good thing has its own bad aspect and every bad thing has its own good aspect. I totally agree. But now, as we embrace the good things of modernity and the modern society, what it brings, how best are we working towards, dealing with its challenges? Because in as much as it has its good side, it embodies with it some challenges. So how best are we working? And that's why I started by saying it's funny how in the current modern society, one will resonate for something that, resonate with their personal interest and disregard another thing that doesn't resonate with their personal interest and think that they'll achieve a solution. I feel like for one to entirely attain that which is necessary, they should accommodate their critics as well as who support them. So you can't just be here and accommodating you just because you pamper me with some good words and I disregard my critics. Then I won't be doing anything because apparently life there's no utopian life. Life is not a straight line. Life has both sides of the coin, and it's until you flip both sides of the coin and see what works for you and what does not work for you, then you just be doing nothing.
I've always believed it comes down to respect and adaptability, and we can honor the values that have shaped us while embracing a world where everyone, regardless of gender, thrives in the roles that they choose. And let's not forget, women often lead in areas like climate change, something we just talked about, and sustainable development. We have a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Wangari Maathai, who clearly was a leader in that. And also leaders in managing natural resources and caregiving simultaneously. And it's time that I think we recognize and amplify these contributions. In the United States, keep people here talking about abolishing the 19th Amendment and not giving women the right to vote. What? What kind of backwards logic is that? That is completely utter backwards. It's like you're supposed to be moving forward. They have all, like, that's completely stupid. Anyways, and it's important we recognize and amplify these contributions. And traditionally, men were providers and women were caregivers. But let me ask you this. Why is it that when women take on traditional male roles, it is considered progress, but when men embrace caregiving, it is seen as weakness? Are we truly redefining roles, or are we just shifting the burden here?
Actually, I recently read, I don't know if you've read, there's a book called Unplugged, which talks about, you know, the societal roles of the masculine energy, feminine energy, and how the modern, society has reshaped that into something else. Then the guy poses a question and asks if indeed there's toxic masculinity, then why are all women struggling to be masculine? So you see, there's an obvious hypocrisy in the whole cause of trying to empower. It's very okay to empower women, but in what perspective? If you analyze it from a very thorough eye, there's a whole level of hypocrisy in the whole cause. And that brings us to the very question that you asked. That is, we embrace women in the tech world, in the professional world, in the corporate world. And that's very okay. It's a progress, the societal progress. But why don't we embrace men in caregiving? See, that means there's a problem somewhere that really needs to be redefined. If we think that embracing women in the tech world, in the technological advancement, in the professional career and whatnot, but is a progress, is a societal progress, and on the other hand, embracing men in caregiving and whatnot is wrong and being weak, then I posit to you and to the whole society, then there's something wrong. And we are being very hypocritical in terms of addressing that. Now, here's my text. I believe we can create a number of multiple of world orders, but we cannot create a new world nature. We can try as much as we want to create new world orders with whatever society that we want to live in, but we can never at any material time create a new world nature. And from what I see it and believe, things that nature gave to the feminine energy as so things that nature gave to the masculine energy. And at any material time, if one negates that, then there's a problem. Let's analyze the cases of femicides, the cases of women being killed. If you check from a report, the cases of femicides mostly are found in relationship, marriage, and family sector, not in the professional workplace. They are mostly not in the professional. That means there's a problem. And the problem is not women embracing this societal paradigm in terms of them being accommodated in the professional workplace, in the technological advancement, and in the corporate sectors. But can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, thank you. So you see,
Yeah,
the
keep going.
biggest problem is from an analytical point, the problem even with femicide and gender-based violence is not out here in the societal paradigm in terms of corporate accommodating, women. The problem is, from my perspective, how does a woman carries themselves as a woman when it comes to relationship, family, and marriage? How does a man carries themselves as a man when it comes to relationship, family, and marriage? Because let's take an example of Samia Suluhu, our very able president from our neighbor country, Tanzania. Here, she's the president of the Republic of Tanzania, but when she goes home, she's a wife to someone. So she cannot embodies her presidency back to her home. That will be, inapplicable. So she knows that yes, she's the president of the Republic of Tanzania, but when she goes back to her house, she has a husband and she's a wife to that husband. And I feel like if our women, and especially Kenya, because this is it's affecting it's a global issue, but it's really affecting my country, Kenya. Our women will realize that yes, you are in the corporate space and it's very okay because it's a societal advancement. When you get back home, you're someone's wife. And also, our men needs to realize that a woman working out there, maybe she's a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, or whatever the profession that she's in, that's her profession, and you support her as insofar as she's in that profession. And when she comes home, she's your wife, your family, and now that aspect of family take over. And the moment we disintegrate that, I feel like something will start working from us because I don't know, but from my interaction with a number of corporate babes, call them corporate babes, it feels like they can't draw a distinct line as to when they are corporate babes and when now they have to get into family, relationship, and marriage. And it's really messing them up a lot. And not just women, but also men.
Some great things you touched upon there, which brings us to our final topic, coexistence. Hussein, your work in conservation involves collaboration across diverse groups. Do you think the lessons from environmental work, like building partnerships and aligning goals, can apply to fostering gender equality?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, that's one by us collaborating, it's one of the very integral and significant approach towards ending this. See, the ripple effect of femicide apparently is probably women fear men, fearing men, and the ripple effect of androcide is probably men fearing women. But now, if we collaborate in these projects, it becomes very easy. Actually, talking of that, recently I was also engaging a certain woman. She's called Anaya, very bright lady. She's also in the climate and environmental space. She was telling me the project that she's really planning to work on 2025. So I think one of the approach towards ending this whole phobia thing is the aspect of collaboration. It's very important.
I agree. Definitely something to expand on is that coexistence isn't just about tolerating difference. I think it's about building genuine connections and shared goals. And I think initiatives like the Kenya's National Gender-Based Violence Toll-Free Line, it shows how collaboration can create impactful solutions. It's actually something that's showing that Kenya is which brings the question though, in terms of is Kenya trying to adopt the Western world too much? However, it's still making its own individual progress as a republic. And if we can create ecosystems where both genders thrive, just like in nature, we can address both social and environmental challenges more efficiently. And I think peaceful coexistence sounds great on paper, but let's be honest. How many of us are truly willing to give up the power we hold? Whether it's men, corporations, or even governments. Can we really achieve equality and equity actually without those in power sacrificing some of their privilege? And just out of curiosity, Hussein, do you think that Kenya itself as a country it's pushing too much to try to adopt a Western ideology, or what do you? Because I feel like there's just certain aspects that should just not adopt a Western ideology of things. It should still be based as what the traditional aspect of it in Kenya. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Apparently, yes, Kenya is really trying so much to push into adoption of the Western ideologies, but the problem is they're not willing to bear the Western problems. So you want to, it's like you want to copy my ways, but you don't want to bear the consequences of my ways. So that's the problem that we are in right now. So I'm in Kenya trying to adopt the Western ideologies. It's kind of in denial that Western ideologies comes with consequences that it has to bear. Apparently, most of the consequences are what we are talking about. Things to do with femicides, things to do with divorce. I was reading a report the other day which says 70% of divorce in the United States are actually filed by women. So 80% of marriages don't work. So when we embody the Western ideologies, we really need to realize that the ripple effect of us embodying that. And we really need to be willingly ready to live with the consequences of what we choose. So from my perspective, it's not going to work for me from a personal point of view. But if Kenya as a country at large decides to embodies the Western ideologies, then I feel like it should be ready to also live with the ripple effects and the consequences of embodying the Western ideology.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And this is something I probably said earlier. Just thought about it, but I think this President Ruto, he has had our hands tied here a little bit because. But something I mentioned earlier was about Jeff Bezos. Maybe because I just recently was reading about it and heard what he said, but he has talked about the need for optimism and collaboration in solving big problems. Whether it's conserving our planet or fostering gender equality, it feels like this mindset could guide anybody in any nation or any republic toward more meaningful solutions. And it's not the fixed, it's the growth mindset aspect of things. So, as we come here to a close today, first I want to thank you, Hussein, for joining today and sharing your perspective. We have some more work that we'll be dropping soon. To all the listeners and viewers out there, be on the lookout for that. Voices of Change coming up with other collaborators. And Hussein, your work is truly inspiring, and it's very actionable and solution oriented. And maybe the problem isn't the lack of the awareness about climate change or gender violence. It's just that people benefit from the status quo sometimes. And I think that the question to ask is, are we ready to disrupt those benefits? Are we ready to dismantle and shift those perspectives to be able to honor what has occurred, but also have a forward progress thinking towards what can actually solve some of the problems that society is facing in regards to climate action, gender-based violence, and everything else. So, Hussein, thank you so much, man. Any last words you have before we come to an end here?
Well, mine is to actually appreciate you for hosting me and giving me the platform to share my views and perspective and actually what is going on around Kenya. And I feel like it's very important when we say these things because if we don't say them, then who else will? So I appreciate so much and I'm looking forward for the upcoming projects down to them as we work towards preserving our environment, walking the journey, fighting against the gender-based violence and anything else that pertains our environment and our peaceful coexistence with human beings and nature at large. So thank you so much, Tex. I appreciate it.
No problem, Hussein. I'm actually excited for these projects, man, and I wish I could. I want to say them, but I can't. We gotta let's keep that for the let's keep that for the next time we do it, because oh man, I'm excited for this.
Remember, Tex, back the aspect of the element of surprise and is an element of good. So people needs to be surprised.
Yeah, so that's something. Yeah, whew, man, I'm so excited for about it. But I'm gonna just say this: it's life changing. Anyways, to all our listeners out there, the world is full of challenges, but also opportunities. So let's take responsibility for our roles in creating a better world. Maybe that's planting a tree, supporting a survivor, or simply starting a conversation like this one. Anyways, until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, pursue your dream, seize the day. Peace out.